With us now is retired Brigadier General Peter Zwack. He is a global fellow at the Wilson Center's Kennan Institute and served as the U.S. Senior Defense Attaché to the Russian Federation. General, look, I want to start with the drone attacks on Moscow up here, which here's the Ukrainian border, about 300 miles, depending on what direction you go, from inside Ukraine. I want to show people the sites inside Russia or in Russian-controlled territory that have been hit over the last several weeks. You can see most of the areas have to do with the Russian occupation directly of Ukraine, either supply areas or Russian-held territory inside Ukraine. Moscow stands alone as a much different target. Now, the Ukrainians deny direct involvement, but what do the drone attacks in Moscow do for the Ukrainians, even if they didn't do it?
Good morning, John, and to your viewers. Yeah, it is highly significant. What we have going on here is that the Russians are being fed a narrative about the justness of this the special military operation, and they're going to prevail. Yet they just had the Kremlin, however it happened, hit last month. They've just had Moscow and the suburbs hit now, and the drones are coming from somewhere. It's an extreme range for, if you will, the Ukrainian organic drones, Tochka or the Bayraktars from Turkey, if they were far from the border. But the bottom line is that they can't hide the war from, if you will, call the cities now what I would call mainstream Russia. The bill payers for most of the war in Ukraine have been troops from the provinces, but now they're having to deal with it. And the military bloggers are out there. Prigozhin has already lambasted the military again just a few hours ago for their ineffectiveness in defending the motherland and all. So this is very disconcerting for Putin and the Kremlin. In trying to keep, if you will, a stable narrative. It's a big deal, much bigger than the actual sum of the strikes.
Yeah, and again, and this is some video of what the strike looked like inside Moscow. That type of image is seen in Kyiv almost every time, several times a day. This is some of the video on the attacks on Kyiv, which have been relentless, frankly, over the last several days, day and night. Why are the Russians striking now with such ferocity in the Ukrainian capital?
I think for several. First of all, I was there with a delegation of the Renewed Democracy Initiative, an NGO focused on countering authoritarianism worldwide, domestically. Now here, I think it's a bunch of reasons. One, there's fury, there's anger that's been going on now for months, but especially after Kremlin strike. There's a side of the Russians, John, that I believe they want the Ukrainians to submit. It's a word that's almost medieval, submit, and they aren't. And the more the Ukrainians fight back and the more the Ukrainians create problems in the area, the harder it gets. And they haven't figured it out. I also think increasingly the Russians are now trying to. They're really nervous about all the talk about a counteroffensive and the preparations, the shaping operations, everybody, and so that's going on. So they're lashing out in a way, and the thing that's critical is that these are not hitting effectively military targets. They're primarily hitting targets where there are a lot of civilians, and they're killing. And if the Russians think that's going to make the Ukrainians submit, from our view, in my group that I was with, we were there for the first big night of the missile strikes in Kyiv on the 16th of May, when the Patriots and other things were knocking down top-notch Kinzhal Russian cruise missiles. So it's on. Ukrainians are implacable. The Russians are increasingly frustrated, and they're increasingly worried, and I think it goes all the way back to the Kremlin.
General Peter Zwack, thank you so much for helping us this morning. We'll talk to you again soon.
Terrified children running for their lives as Russia unleashed another massive aerial attack on Ukrainian cities. But Ukraine says its air defense managed to shoot down all the ballistic missiles fired at the capital, Kyiv. And now Ukraine's forces seem nearly ready for their own much-anticipated counter-offensive. This weekend, Ukraine's top general, Valery Zaluzhny, releasing this video showing troops gearing up for battle and showcasing modern Western weapons with a clear message: it's time to take back what's ours. And that's what these guys are training for. This is a unit of the Offensive Guard from Ukraine's Interior Ministry. We have a clear motivation, the commander says. We defend our lands. This is our nation, our homeland. The Offensive Guard is mustering tens of thousands of troops, they say, training to storm trenches and evacuate casualties, which they know they're bound to have in the tough battles ahead. What these guys are practicing here, no doubt, will become a reality for the Ukrainian armed forces very soon, as Kiev says it will start a massive counteroffensive to take back all of their territory, including Crimea. The Ukrainians already seem to be stepping up strikes on possible Russian supply lines in occupied areas. Russian-installed officials claiming Ukrainian missile attacks against targets around Berdyansk and Mariupol in southeastern Ukraine in the past days. It's just the beginning, a top advisor to Ukraine's presidency tells me. Everything that is happening now is a precursor for a counterattack, a necessary precursor where the intensity of fire increases. And he lays out bold aims for the counteroffensive. It will end undoubtedly on the borders of Ukraine as they were in 1991, with the deoccupation of Crimea and with the beginning of a massive process of transformation of Russia's political system. But for now, resilience remains key for the people in Ukraine's cities. These newlyweds had just tied the knot and were on their way to their celebration when the air raid sirens went off. So they just continued to celebrate in the bomb shelter, vowing not to let Russian rockets ruin the best day of their lives. Fred Pleitkin, CNN, Kiev.